Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought to yourself, why didn't I stand up for myself? Why did I stay quiet? Why didn't I speak my truth? Why did I care so much about making them feel comfortable? What if your struggles with boundaries isn't really a communication problem, but actually a subconscious survival pattern at play? In today's episode, we'll actually be exploring more of why you may not be able to set loving boundaries and how do we actually set loving boundaries without it being a way of burning bridges in relationship and rather being a bridge. I'm going to share a technique with you called the boundary sandwich that's going to teach you how to form loving boundaries. Because healing isn't learning to stay quiet. Healing isn't even shutting other people out. Healing is actually your ability to speak your truth with love. Welcome back to You Are Enough with Michelle Jacob. I am Michelle. I'm the author of the book You Are Enough, founder of Reviving Minds, and creator of the Quantum Inner Transformation Technique. What do you hear or what do you feel when you hear the word boundaries? Does your chest tighten up? Do you feel, oh my gosh, this is such a strong word? When you hear the word boundaries, do you visualize walls? Does it feel like it is something you do to protect yourselves? It's something you do where you cut another person from your life. It's something you do where you don't need to explain yourself. Is that what comes to mind? Now, let me be really clear on this. Sometimes you need to have rigid walls as your boundaries, especially if it's a situation where you're getting emotionally abused. It's a situation where there's physical danger to you. It's a matter of physical safety and you need to have a wall. You need to cut this person out of your life. In these situations, walls become protection. You need to have these walls. But today what we're going to talk about is not these kind of relationships. We're going to talk about everyday relationship. Your relationship with your coworkers, business partners, your spouse or your partner, with friends, with children. With these relationships, how do you have boundaries without destroying the relationship? So this is what fascinates me. As someone who has spent over a decade helping people reprogram their subconscious mind and their survival patterns, what I see time and time again is that my clients do not have a communication problem. What they had or what they experienced was every time they thought about setting a boundary, every time they thought about expressing how they're truly feeling, what they truly need, their nervous system said they are not safe. This is not safe. You see, growing up, if you as a child expressed your needs, if you as a child started crying and your parent just left the room, your caregiver just left the room, let you be, if you expressed your opinion and you were criticized, if someone told you you're being too much when you're speaking your truth and saying what your needs are, if you saw that love was taken away from you, you know what happens as a child? Your nervous system, your mind, your subconscious program is not thinking, hey, what is the best boundary to set at this time? It's thinking, how can I stay connected to my caregiver? Because connection is safety. Connection is what we needed or what we need as children to stay alive. So what ends up happening? You end up taking on different roles. So in your family, if you had to be the peacemaker to stay connected with your family, you become the peacemaker. If you had to be the overachiever in your family, then you become the overachiever. If you had to be the one overgiving in your family to stay connected, you become the overgiver. If you had to be the invisible one to stay connected, to stay safe, you become the invisible one. And you call it your personality. Many of you are walking around thinking, oh, I'm an overachiever. I just like to camouflage with my surroundings. And you think that's your personality when it's not. It's your survival pattern. It's who you became, who you had to be, so you felt connected to your caregiver. And now you might be in your 40s, and a simple sentence such as, hey, this doesn't work for me, becomes so hard for you to say. And you don't even understand why. And the reason for why the sentence is so hard for you is because your nervous system and your subconscious programming associates speaking your truth with being unsafe. So what I've noticed is there are 3 ways you can set boundaries. But out of the 3 ways, there's only one way of setting boundary that can lead to true freedom and connection. Now, the first boundary is fear-based boundary. And fear-based boundaries can sound like, I'm done, I'm complete, all the best, I am cutting you out of my life, I'm going to block you. Right? Those are fear-based boundaries. Fear-based boundaries, again, now these sentences that I said are great and should be used when you are in real danger, when someone is repeatedly manipulating you, when you are in a relationship where there's emotional abuse, when you're in a relationship where there's physical abuse. You need to have those walls. You need to say, yeah, we're done, right? But these boundaries are not appropriate in everyday relationship. However, these boundaries are often seen by those who are just learning to set boundaries, who are new into their healing journey. They just started, their babies in the healing journey, and they just started to use their voice. They are practicing how to stand up for themselves. They realize that all these years, people have manipulated them, people have put them down, or people haven't given them an opportunity to use their voice. So now they are coming from a place of fear where they no longer want anyone, even if they sense somebody might harm them, they have a boundary. And that oftentimes doesn't serve you. That doesn't serve you because you ruin a lot of your relationships in the process. Remember what I was talking about, boundary being a bridge in normal relationships? Boundary is a bridge, not a wall. If you notice yourself being in this stage, that's okay. Just notice without judgment, notice with kindness. Realize that, hey, you know what? This is my learning phase. I am new in my healing journey and I am using my voice, and that's okay. Now that you know the risk that you're putting all your relationships in, you can start to shift and upgrade your boundary setting techniques, right? And that upgrade is what I'm going to teach you today. So stay tuned. Now, the second type of boundary setting is flexible boundaries. As a former overgiver, overgivers tend to have this kind of boundaries, the flexible one. The flexible boundary is you have a boundary, I will not tolerate this, and someone pushes the boundary. Let's say it's name calling. You will not tolerate name calling. And somebody calls your name, and you shift that boundary and go, you know what, they were just very tired. Oh, they had a stressful day at work. And these folks continue the name calling, continue manipulating you, continue putting you down, and you get angry. You know something is wrong, that this shouldn't be happening, but you walk away. You justify the other person's action. You just keep moving your boundary, until there's no longer a boundary. Now, the problem with this is every time you moved your boundary, every time you thought you were being that person who is mature, because that's often how we justify it. We justify it by saying, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to be the mature one. I'll just let it go. You're not letting it go. You are abandoning yourself. When you don't voice your needs and you're just trying to take the high road, you're abandoning the little girl within. You are making her feel unseen, unheard. You are saying to your subconscious mind, I am not worthy to stand up for myself. You see, that little girl within you isn't looking to win every fight, win every argument. But what she is looking for from you is for you to stand by her side, for you to make her feel seen and heard. So every time you suppress your needs, guess who's getting affected? And if you're wondering, what is she talking about? Who is this inner child? Go watch episode 1 and episode 2 where we talk about the inner child. And there's an inner child meditation in episode 2 where you can visit the inner child within you. Now, let's move on to the third boundary. The third boundary is what I hope we all grow into and practice setting more of, and that is loving boundaries. Setting loving boundaries. Loving boundaries is all about speaking your truth, saying, you know what, I matter. My voice matters. And so does yours. In loving boundaries, there is no character assassination. There is no judgment. There is no punishment of the other person. In loving boundaries, we make space for truth, for your voice to be heard, for you to speak your truth, and space for the other person to speak theirs as well. Loving boundaries are all about creating bridges. It's all about maintaining the connection. It's all about evolving the relationship, growing that relationship rather than burning the bridges, which is what fear-based boundaries do. How do you set loving boundaries? Now, to set loving boundaries, I teach a tool here called the boundary sandwich. The boundary sandwich is basically, imagine a sandwich. Your sandwich has a bottom piece, then you have all your layers, and you have a top piece. And the two slices of bread holds the sandwich together. And these two slices, see them as your connection piece, okay? So the first slice is going to be you maintaining the connection. You saying words such as, I care about you. I love you. I value our relationship. I value our friendship. Connection. Now, this connection piece is very important because this is what's going to make their nervous system and your nervous system feel safe, right? So the guards are down. Second comes your boundary. That is the sandwich, or those are the layers, your boundary. Now, the boundary is you not calling them names, not saying you always, you never. The boundary is you stating the fact. When you do this, I feel this. This really bothers me because, right? Notice the facts. You're stating facts. So for example, if you have a coworker who's constantly late for a meeting, when you are consistently 20 minutes late, it really stresses me out because I have other meetings to get to. And then share with them what you expect out of them, what you want from them. From next time, I would like it if you could give me a heads up. Next time, I would like it if you could arrive on time, right? The heads up, the arriving on time is your expectation from them, right? What are you expecting? Now, you're not trying to control their behavior. You're sharing what your expectations are. You're not telling them you have to, you better be doing this. You're saying, this is what I'm expecting. Now, The bottom or the top layer of your sandwich is connection again. But before that connection, we need to add the element of growth. A proper boundary is where you convey, if this continues, what are you going to do? Remember, I said boundary isn't about controlling the other person. It's about stating your expectation and stating what you will do. So if this continues, if you're consistently late, then unfortunately, I will have to end our meeting still at the time that I said or what we scheduled, because I have other meetings to go to, right? So you're not pushing this meeting and giving them extra 15 minutes. You're going to end it right on time. Even with your kids, when you're setting the boundary or when it's the last layer, you got to be clear with them, or your spouse or your partner. Be clear. If this continues, if you continue to speak to me disrespectfully, I will not continue the conversation. I will walk away until we are both calm and come back to the conversation. Speak what you're going to be doing. And then remember connection again. Tell them why this matters, why you're even conveying the boundary. It is because you value the relationship. It's because you value them. Is when someone's being disrespectful, how are you going to end that? If it's let's say a child, you're going to end by saying, I value our relationship. I value you. I love you. I don't want us to continue shouting. I want to hear you. But when you shout, I can't hear you, right? So you're ending that conversation, reminding them how valuable they are in your life. And this, my friend, is the boundary sandwich. And the boundary sandwich is one of the most powerful tools that ensures that you leave that conversation feeling heard and feeling valued, and the other person leaves the conversation having their dignity intact, where you didn't accuse them, you didn't label them. When you're setting a boundary, another thing to remember is be clear. Don't set vague boundaries that the other person does not even understand what you're talking about. Be specific. Specificity is you being kind to yourself and kind to the other person, giving both yourself and the other person an opportunity to leave the conversation without destroying the relationship. Today was not about learning a new tool, learning the boundary sandwich. Today was actually about learning how to speak your truth without suppressing it, honoring yourself and honoring the other person. Because healing isn't about counting the amount of times you're setting boundaries now. Healing is about you learning to speak your truth without putting another person down. Speaking your truth by honoring yourself and honoring the other human in front of you. So as I leave you, I want to actually leave you with questions to reflect on this week. The first question is, ask yourself, what happened in your childhood? What was your relationship like with your caregivers that led you to believe that you couldn't express your truth, that you couldn't be your authentic self, that you couldn't say no, that you couldn't express your needs? Question number 2 is reflect on what we talked about. We talked about 3 different boundary setting styles, and maybe you are in the initial phases of your healing journey, and your boundary setting style might be the fear-based boundary, where it's still coming from a survival pattern. And ask yourself, is it serving me? And are you ready? It's okay if you're not ready to go on to the next level of boundary setting. Just seeing where you are in the journey. Maybe a year from today, you might be ready to step into the next level version of you, the next level version of you who is that leader, who leads knowing how powerful he or she is, but leads also knowing that the other person standing in front of you is also valuable, is also a human being whose dignity you need to leave intact. So just asking yourself, are you ready to do that? I want to actually leave you with these two questions for now. And if you haven't already watched episode 1 and episode 2, now is the time. We will be ending today's episode for now. Remember, my friend, you are enough. You're valuable, and you're here with a divine purpose. You matter. Your voice matters. See you next time.